And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special segment of Australian Indian Radio's Daily Live show. Well, it is the 10th day of February 2022 and a beautiful day out here in Brisbane. Gone up a nudge, a while back it was just 24 degrees, now 26 degrees and glorious and a sunny day here in Brisbane. Once again, welcome to the show and it's so good to have your company. Well, today we've got lots to talk about and we will be finishing up with our daily India report with Himanshu after our daily news update. Well, in the Parliament, the big debate that's going on right now is the Religious Vilification Act, and there's two things. Number one, there is this religious anti-discrimination, and of course the Religious Discrimination Act. So that should just deal with all aspects of that, what's allowed, what should not be allowed, that hate crime. So, the key points are every religion should be respected. No one should be, people should be prosecuted for hate speeches and things that are made, but everyone should be allowed to practice their own religion within their own boundaries, and that is all fine. Now, the problem is when they have the Religious Discrimination Act together with the sexual discrimination. So now that's slightly two different things. So, I don't think those two should be put in the same basket. There should be laws regarding both, and there should be separate rules, not bundled up into one. That's my personal feeling, because, you could deal with different things with the people of faith and the faith groups and on the religious issues and the religious matters, which is of important to all Australians. So, deal with that under that act. For the, sexual discrimination or anti-discrimination or discrimination against sexual orientation and whatever should be a different debate altogether and should be a different act. That's my personal views. But as we know, yesterday, till early mornings of the hours, the debate still went on.
Laura Tingle's with me now. Laura, on some other matters in Canberra today, manoeuvrings continued in Parliament over the Religious Discrimination Bill. Where do things currently stand?
So, at the moment, the Coalition Party Room passed the legislation yesterday, but Bridget Archer indicated she couldn't support it. Other moderates have suggested that there might be further modifications to be made to that legislation. It's been debated in the House today. Labor has said that it wants amendments dealing with gay teachers to be protected and also trans students to be protected, and also a modification of what's called the Statement of Beliefs, which deals with the capacity to say something because you believe it, but in a way that may cause harm to others. Now, Labor has said it will not insist on those amendments in the House, and it will move to the Senate. Obviously, the numbers in the Senate are not so good for the government.
So Labor's voting for it in the House. What's the intersection here between tactics and principle?
Well, it's become a bit sort of strangely. We're talking about the rights of transgender students and gay teachers and things like this. It seems to have moved a long way from being about religious discrimination and freedom of religion. But both sides are treading very warily, because this issue of religious freedom is a very sensitive one for both sides of politics, so they don't want to look like they're blocking it. But I think there's a sense in both camps that, certainly in their backbenchers, that this is a real problem for them, that it's just become too convoluted, and they're hoping that one or the other will blink first.
Laura Tingle, thank you.
As you can see from that report, that they're talking about the transgender, the lesbians, gay, and those aspects. And of course, everyone's got the right to live. Everyone is the way they are, not through the choice of their own. That's how they are. But the point is that it should not be put together with the Religious Discrimination Board. Well, that's my personal feeling, because the religious and faith matters and everything to do with that should be a separate bill, a separate debate on that, separate set of rules for that. Putting them two together in the same, under the same act, is, to me, not the right thing to do. But maybe that's the way it has been so far. Well, right now, let's move on and get the second report on that same matter.
I also fundamentally believe that it's an opportunity to address the issue of discrimination which is permitted in the SDA against those that we have the greatest responsibility to in our education system, to students themselves. And again, at the moment, the SDA allows schools to discriminate based on all those characteristics I mentioned before. Of course, the reality is it's uncommon for that to happen. I think of the wonderful schools in my electorate. I've spoken to many of the school principals just this week, and all of them strive to provide a supporting environment to students based on their sexuality or gender, including those that are transgender or going through the transition. But there are still some, and we've seen this just in recent weeks, that would purport in the name of their religion to discriminate in what I think is quite a heinous way. And I want to tell you why this is important to me, because my own journey, something I don't talk about because I'm intrinsically a private person, my own journey is a reflection of what many other people have experienced. Different age, in the 70s and the 80s. But like so many of my peers, I went through that period, that long period of struggling with my sexuality, where I lived in fear of discovery, where someone simply talking about homosexuality sent me rushing in case it led to some type of exposure, where I could spend weeks after an incident, if I'd said the wrong thing, wondering whether I'd revealed myself. And that is just so debilitating. And I did that in an environment of a school that was not particularly conservative. I can never remember it preaching against homosexuality. I did it in an environment where I had such a loving family and support group of friends. But nonetheless, for people in my situation in that age, it was such an ordeal. And can I say that whilst we have improved so much, so incredibly much just in my own lifetime, I know that that is still the experience of so many Australians. There are people today that are in mental anguish because of their sexuality. There are even more people in anguish because of their gender. And we have to provide a legal environment that supports them. And part of that is ensuring that when they're going to school, when they're going to an educational institution, they do so with that struggle that might be within them, but knowing at the very least that that school cannot legally discriminate against them. That school cannot expel them, that school cannot penalise them in a way that they have a de facto expulsion because their life becomes so unpleasant. And I want every child in those educational settings, whilst it's not a solution of itself, to know that the school itself is not going to be the cause of a problem that they face. And as a Member of Parliament, one of the proudest things about being in a position that I am is that so many parents have contacted me, even about my first speech, and said we gave that to our child to help them. So many young people themselves have approached me.
We'll cross over now to a live broadcast when David Crisafulli is coming on live.
You're not sorry yesterday. A half-baked apology. When you apologise, it doesn't come with caveats. You don't say, I'm sorry, that's how it made you feel. You're sorry because of what you've done and what you've said. And good apologies come with a call to action. We didn't get that yesterday. On the Peter Beattie scale of apology, I reckon it was about a 1.5. Not really sorry, with no action to boot. What's the Premier sorry for, and what is she going to do about it? What issues that the brave Integrity Commissioner, the State Archivist, the architect of our integrity system in this state, brave journos, Labor backbenchers speaking against the Premier, whistleblowers, former media staffer, what action will the Premier take to address those concerns? Because without that, it's the apology you have when you're not having an apology. And on behalf of every Queenslander, we repeat again, nothing short of a full-blown Royal Commission into the systemic corruption raging through this government will cut it. And what next? So what happens when the next brave whistleblower steps up? Will there be another apology? Will there be more inaction? At some stage, the government has to admit that after 3 weeks of the darkest chapter in integrity in this state's history in more than 3 decades, at some stage there's got to be a call to action. there's got to be something that acknowledges that this is a real issue that needs real action. And nothing short of a full-blown inquiry into the way that government is run will cut it. I've got some questions today that the apology didn't address. What's on the laptop? What did the Premier have to gain by it being erased from history? Where's Mick de Brenny? Where's Leanne Enoch? Where's Mark Bailey? None of them have answered questions about what we have seen in the last 3 weeks. And on behalf of every Queenslander, nothing short of a full-blown Royal Commission will cut it. And when governments are consumed with how things look rather than how they are, everyday Queenslanders fall through the cracks. And I'm going to ask Tim to reveal what is a great failure in the social housing space before Ros discusses some ambulance waiting times. Thanks, Tim.
Well, thanks, David. Well, I know who the Premier should be apologising to. She should be apologising to the tens of thousands of vulnerable Queenslanders that are looking for social housing. New information discovered by the opposition this week shows you that the government's housing strategy is a hoax. 5 years ago, they announced a $1.8 billion 10-year strategy to increase social housing. At the halfway mark today, 5 years later, we can show you that that journey is actually woefully inadequate. There's been less than a 1% increase in the number of additional bedrooms added to the social housing property. 1,190 extra bedrooms across the state. That's despite the fact that the public housing waiting list has exploded an extra 70% to 50,000 vulnerable Queenslanders. And of those 50,000 vulnerable Queenslanders, 80% of those people are regarded as very high need. So this government has trumpeted those announcements that they made 5 years ago. They've doubled down recently again. But they have proven through these results, through these outcomes, that they cannot be trusted. And that Queenslanders are seeing through this government for what they are. So that's who the Premier should be apologising to, the tens of thousands of social housing people seeking social housing that will not get a property under this government strategy because they have just failed to deliver.
And we'll leave that live report there. Moving on with the news, so we'll go on to right now New South Wales, where the Auditor General has issued a blistering report on the government.
The train on platform 21 goes to City Circle via Museum.
The New South Wales government set up the Transport Asset Holding Entity to manage $40 billion worth of the state's rail assets.
In the setting up of the Transport Asset Holding Entity was completely in line and very similar to the approach that had been taken in Queensland and Victoria.
Critics said it was an accounting trick designed to inflate the state's finances by moving billions of dollars out of the budget and potentially putting rail passengers at risk.
The government had the opportunity to choose what was important to them, accounting outcomes when it comes to the budget or rail safety when it comes to the public, and they chose the accounting benefit.
Today, the New South Wales Auditor General delivered a blistering report to the government. Margaret Crawford issued a high-risk finding against New South Wales Treasury and blasted it for withholding information, providing inaccurate forecasts and relying too heavily on consultants. The Auditor General wrote that incomplete and timely sharing of information is key to preserving trust. Her report concluded there was now significant uncertainty about the rail entity and its impact on the state's finances. The New South Wales Treasurer Matt Keane told 730 he always welcomed recommendations for how the New South Wales government could do things better.
And of course, the reliance on consultants, and that's what happens because their point of view and the way they look at things could be quite different from the sentiments that is said or felt throughout the electorate. The timely information and withholding the information and not proper reporting is the major problem. But right now, moving on, let's go to South Australia for the next two report. First one is about that emergency and the protest sitting in South Australian Parliament, wanting a debate. Of course, we know that these topics are important to everyone.
24 lower house MPs in Parliament in protest, an unofficial sitting where government benches were left bare.
This is a divided government that is increasingly desperate to the extent that they're not here doing their job while every other South Australian is.
The opposition independents and Speaker wanted the House of Assembly recalled today to pass changes to electoral laws, which include allowing phone voting for people in COVID quarantine at next month's election. With the Premier repeatedly refusing to recall the House, members of Parliament, including former Liberals, turned up anyway to send a message.
And no one should be denied the right or the ability to have a say on their state's future.
I think people might not care about their vote till they lose it, and what's effectively happened is some people have lost their vote today.
This is an issue that should have been resolved by consensus. We should never have got to this point, and we should never have been here today. This issue should have been resolved.
The Treasurer says a resolution is being found, and his advice from the Electoral Commission is there's no time to get phone voting in place before March 19, even if the laws went through Parliament this week.
This is just a massive political stunt. Pete's pantomime with his puppets behind him.
Rob Lucas pledging to give the Electoral Commissioner the funds he needs to run polling day safely.
He will get access to whatever resources are required to try and ensure that all those people who do want to vote have the maximum opportunity to vote.
The Electoral Commission is already strongly recommending eligible voters plan ahead and apply for a postal vote now. It says it'll have a full election plan released in coming weeks, but there's already a warning about the potential outcomes of a COVID-impacted poll.
I'm worried that very close contests in different seats may end up in the Court of Disputed Returns.
An example of that when the Liberals took independent Peter Lewis to court after he backed Labor following the 2002 election. Rory McLaren, ABC News.
And that's not a pretty sight there, but elections under this COVID circumstances is very, very tough. Well, still in South Australia, well, we know that on the track, a teen has been tested at Adelaide International Airport.
Aidan Murphy has dominated the track this season and has no intentions of slowing down. The state's fastest under-20 runner across 200 metres, he also holds the 100-metre record in 10.35 seconds.
I've got previous state records as a junior, but, this is really like my breakout year. I just can't wait to get out and see what I can do.
Murphy has a proven sprinting pedigree. He's the son of two-time Commonwealth Games gold medalist Tanya Van Heer, who still holds the women's state 100-metre record.
It is awesome to have a look at that state record list and see, our names, male and female, across the board, but, I'm looking to fill it up a little bit more.
I'm really happy that he found his niche in life as well, and that he's getting an opportunity to be his own person.
Coached by 1976 Olympian Peter Fitzgerald, Murphy faces his biggest test yet at this weekend's Adelaide Invitational. The race meet will feature Olympians Isabel Batt-Doyle and Peter Boll, while Murphy will take on 100-metre semi-finalists Rowan Browning.
I'm more than looking forward to see what I can do. Obviously, I don't expect to win, but if I run well and run within myself, I'll put out a really good show.
He's just excited to get the opportunity to run against someone that has recently shown that he can be competitive with the world.
Van Heer says it's a great opportunity for her son to challenge himself.
To have that opportunity to rub shoulders, like I did with the best, it's just a fantastic experience. I mean, he's in the box here because, he's a youngster.
A youngster with his sights set on making it to the highest level.
I want to be in an Olympic final in Paris 2024, and that's all I've really got my eyes set on right now.
A rising star with big ambitions. Cameron Slessor, ABC News, Adelaide.
Dream big, be big and do good. So, wonderful congratulations on that. Great news coming out of South Australia there. Well, right now let's go to Northern Territory, where COVID outbreak is proving to be a big challenge.
An island in the desert, stranded with no phone service, dwindling food supplies and a growing cluster of COVID cases.
There's a lot of angst in the community. People are concerned.
This has been the reality for the remote community of Umbladawatch as floodwaters blocked road access while the town faced its first COVID outbreak. With just 5 medical staff, none of them doctors, for a population of 600, the health clinic has been under siege. They had counted on government support when the virus arrived, but say little has been forthcoming.
Personally, I feel dejected at the response or lack of it.
After the first COVID cases were detected 2 weeks ago, the clinic urgently requested more rapid antigen tests. Initially, just 50 kits were flown in, leaving health staff to ration their supplies. Hundreds more arrived days later, and another 1,000 are on their way. But the virus has now infected at least 22 people. Enrique Luak believes if testing kits were on hand sooner, they could have contained the spread.
The situation is dire, and I'm afraid, the horse might have bolted.
There are more than 7,000 active cases across the NT, including hundreds in adult and youth prisons. More than 170 people are in hospital.
The hospitalisation rate in the Northern Territory is the highest in the country, with 9 out of 10 people that are in hospital being Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people.
As cases continue to rise, Chief Minister Michael Gunner says resources are being directed to those who need them most.
If we were to treat every positive COVID case as acute, then the people who actually are seriously ill, either from COVID or from other causes, would not get the care that they need. And our health staff, who are under strain, would be flattened.
We are out on the ground day in, day out in Alice Springs, on the town camps, remote communities. There is a complete lack of extra resourcing that the government's promised. So it's a broken promise.
What I can say is this.
The current situation is one that governments had long predicted. When the first major COVID outbreaks hit the Territory's remote communities in November, the government response was swift. Large teams were sent to test and vaccinate, and hundreds were evacuated to quarantine facilities. But with the arrival of Omicron, that approach has been all but abandoned.
Only people at the highest risk of severe disease.
So what seemed to be under control before Omicron has now gone out of control. So that report there from Northern Territories. Right now, what's happening in New Zealand?
They came from all over the country to protest the mask and vaccine mandates.
It's all about freedom of choice and being, allowed to govern our own bodies.
I know this is my choice that I chose not to get vaccinated, but the complications it's had on my family, losing friends, feeling isolated, even mental stuff.
Some weren't actually against vaccinating, but are demanding a choice.
I'm pro-vaccine. The vaccine is a really good thing, but we should be able to decide if we want to have it or not.
Those who work in health and disability, education, corrections, defence, fire and emergency and police must be vaccinated and have received a booster shot. And with New Zealand currently in the red setting of its COVID protection framework, masks must be worn in most indoor settings. That excludes at home and at work if it is not public facing. The Prime Minister chose not to meet protesters on the streets. Instead, she was inside Parliament addressing lawmakers who were reconvening after the summer break. She spoke to reporters afterwards.
I think it would be wrong to, in any way, characterise what we've seen outside as a representation of the majority. The majority of New Zealanders have done everything they can to keep one another safe.
With around 77% of the population fully vaccinated, Jacinda Ardern has said she won't impose more lockdowns, even as COVID case numbers in the country rise, with more than 200 new infections reported every day. But demonstrators here say they'll camp outside Parliament until all COVID-19 restrictions are lifted. Yvonne Yong, ABC News.
That's the news coming out of New Zealand, and of course there are many people who say they are not opposed to the vaccine, but they would like to have the choice, that the choice should be given to the public, and the individual should be able to decide whether or not he or she would like to get the vaccine or not. So that raises the question then, what about the venues and events and other things, their movement, the movement of vaccinated people and unvaccinated people, so that all kinds of complexities do come in there. And as the Prime Minister mentioned there, that did not represent the view of the majority of New Zealanders. Well, before we go to our Daily India report, we'd like to get a message from our sponsors for the segment.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is the world, and don't forget that every Wednesday we have the weekly real estate update with Usha Chandra right here on these studios, providing the insight into the real estate market. But right now it's time to go to India with the Daily India report. With that, let's welcome Himanshu.
Welcome to the Daily India report that brings you glimpses of the changing India. In our first story, political battle is hotting up in the 5 states of India slated to go to the polls starting 10th February. In the biggest state of India, Uttar Pradesh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a virtual rally, taunting the opposition about daydreaming that it could divide the votes along communal and caste lines. Uttar Pradesh state, with a population of nearly 120 million, is the biggest political battleground in India for the ongoing state assembly elections. 4 other states are also holding elections. These elections, just 2 years before the general elections in 2024, are seen as a midterm test for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party that rules both the centre and the state. Uttar Pradesh could really set the tone for what to expect in 2024. Samajwadi Party, now led by its young and former state chief minister Akhilesh Yadav, is the biggest challenger to the BJP. The erstwhile ruler of both central and state governments, the Indian National Congress Party, led by its young leader, the scion of the Nehru-Gandhi clan, Rahul Gandhi, seems to be trailing the BJP and Samajwadi Party. Bahujan Samaj Party, Communists, Aam Aadmi Party and others are fringe parties today. Uttar Pradesh politicians are known to be divisive, issuing communal and caste calls. Prime Minister Modi made an issue of this while addressing a virtual rally targeting the constituencies of the Rampur, Badaun and Sambal districts. He took a swipe at rival parties, saying they are daydreaming about the division of votes in western UP. Modi said UP voters had risen above that and his BJP will defeat other parties based on their development performance and agenda. Modi, confident, and Home Minister Amit Shah released Bharatiya Janata Party's manifesto for the Uttar Pradesh Assembly elections in Lucknow on the same day. The Assembly segments in western UP will go to polling in the first phase on February 10th.
कुछ लोग जिन्हें दिन में सपने देखने की आदत है, वो सोच रहे हैं कि पश्चिम यूपी के लोग बंट जाएंगे, लेकिन उन्हें पता नहीं कि जिन लोगों ने 2014 में उन्हें हराया, जिन लोगों ने 2017 में उन्हें हराया, जिन लोगों ने 2019 में उन्हें हराया, फिर उन्हें हराने जा रहे हैं।
Gautam Adani has replaced Mukesh Ambani as the richest person in India as the share prices of the Adani Group companies soared in value. India's billionaire Gautam Adani, who turned a small commodities trading business into a conglomerate spanning ports, mines and green energy, is now Asia's richest person. Gautam Adani has replaced Reliance Industries chairperson Mukesh Ambani as Asia's richest person, according to Bloomberg's Billionaires Index on 8th February. At 2:55 p.m. on 8th February, real-time data on the index showed that Adani's net worth stood at $88.5 billion and Ambani's at $87.8 billion. Adani was the 10th richest person in the world as of 8th February afternoon. The rankings on the Bloomberg Billionaires Index are dynamic as they change, often within a trading session in equity markets, depending upon the performance of shares held by the entrepreneurs. India's COVID vaccination drive achieved a new milestone. Nearly 60 million teenagers between the age of 15 and 18 have received their first jab. India's COVID vaccination drive hit a new milestone. As per the latest vaccination data on the CoWIN dashboard, nearly 60 million youngsters between 15 and 18 years of age have been administered the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. The Union Health Ministry said the total number of vaccine doses administered in the country crossed 1,700 million. This also included the 15.3 million precautionary third doses administered. Currently, healthcare and frontline workers, senior citizens and those with comorbidities are eligible for a third COVID-19 shot 9 months after their second dose. The precautionary doses are being administered from 10th January. India's first igloo cafe opens in Jammu and Kashmir's Gulmarg. Very quickly, it has become an attraction for tourists. Another big attraction in the idyllic skiing destination of Gulmarg in India's Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. A cafe has opened up called Snowglue at the famous ski resort of Gulmarg. That's 37.5 feet tall and 44.5 feet in diameter. Igloo is a snow house or a snow hut built of snow. Air pockets trapped inside the snow act as insulators to prevent the igloo from becoming intolerably cold. Shahid Wasim Shah, the creator of the igloo, said he saw this concept in Switzerland a few years back, where they have such hotels which are equipped with sleeping facilities as well. And Syed brought it to Gulmarg because of the ski resort and beauty that attracts a lot of tourists. He said he had created an igloo cafe last year also and claimed it was Asia's biggest one. He said the biggest igloo cafe, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, is in Switzerland, and its height is 33.8 feet and diameter 42.4 feet. Syed claims his cafe should now hold the record. Last year's cafe had 4 tables and 16 people could eat at a time. This year they have placed 10 tables. The cafe is created in 2 steps with a staircase. 40 people can eat at a time, he said. It took 64 days to complete it, with 25 people working day and night, adding up to 1,700 man days. Indian documentary Writing with Fire, directed by Rintu Thomas and Sushmit Ghosh, is nominated for the Academy Awards, also known as Oscars. Indian documentary feature Writing with Fire has made it to the final nominations list at the 94th edition of the Academy Awards. The nominations were announced by Tracy Ellis Ross and Leslie Jordan via the Twitter page of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. It said Writing with Fire had previously also won 28 international awards, including Sundance Film Festival in January, where it won 2 awards, Special Jury Impact for Change and Audience Awards at the World Cinema Documentary Competition. This film is Thomas and Ghosh's debut feature documentary about a newspaper, Khabar Lahariya, started as a social experiment by an NGO. It's India's only rural newspaper run by Dalit women since 2002. Started by Delhi-based NGO Nirantar from Chitrakoot in the Bundelkhand region. It is published across Uttar Pradesh and Bihar in rural districts of Hindi, including Bundeli and Awadhi. Khabar Lahariya is India's only women-run brand of ethical and independent rural news. Today, it reaches 5 million people every month through multiple digital platforms. The feature documentary captures Khabar Lahariya's switch from print to digital in recent years. It follows how
vaccinated before the virus came in. If you remember, before December, we actually stated very clearly that we needed people to get vaccinated because we were reuniting families for Christmas and New Year and the holidays, and we needed to get our vaccination rates up as high as we possibly could. And we did that. Queenslanders came out in droves and did that. So it means that our precautions and planning have been working, and whilst our hospitals are challenged, and I do appreciate the hard work that our hospital staff are doing, plus our ambulance staff right across the board, they have done a mighty job, and they keep doing a mighty job as well. So on behalf of Queenslanders, thank you to all of our hard-working staff out there, anyone on that front line that's been dealing with this pandemic. I'd love to say it's over, but it's not. We've still got coming down off that peak, and of course we're going to also see a tail end in March, and then of course we'll be preparing for the flu season, if there is a flu season in the winter months, but we'll get to more information about that as information comes to hand. So the areas past their peak are the Gold Coast, Metro North, West Moreton, Mackay. Areas just past their peak are Metro South, Sunshine Coast, Cairns and Hinterland, and the areas approaching their peak are Townsville, Wide Bay, North West and Torres Cape. The Darling Downs and Central Queensland are yet to peak. 8.7% of the Gold Coast population had the virus, and in Cairns 8.1% of the population had the virus. So I'll get the Chief Health Officer to give you some more information, but Queenslanders should be very proud of the work that they've done going out and getting vaccinated. It's actually kept the community safe, and it was lovely to be in Bundaberg seeing people out and about as they are across the state, people backing in our tourism industry as well, which is great to see, and I just want to thank Queenslanders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. So sadly we have eight deaths to report today, 2 people in their 60s, 4 in their 80s and 2 in their 90s. 3 of these 8 were not vaccinated, 1 had received a single dose of vaccine, 3 had received 2 doses of vaccine, and only 1 had received a booster. And again, our thoughts are with their families. As the Premier has said, our inpatient numbers continue to fall rapidly. We're down to 579 people in our public hospitals being treated for COVID-19, down from 628 yesterday, and down from well over 900 on the 25th of January when we were at our peak. That's the aggregate peak for the state of Queensland. That includes 46 people in intensive care, 22 of whom are ventilated. In private hospitals, we have 54 patients in intensive care, being treated for COVID in our private hospitals. It was 58 yesterday, you might recall. Looking at children, again, the children have only gone back to school this week. Just the PCR results on children, for children aged 5 to 11, there were 231 positive PCR reports yesterday, which was actually down from the previous day when it was 295.
And that was the slight crossover for that very live with the Premier that was happening, and we will resume the Daily India Report.
Paper's chief reporter Meera and her journalists team break traditions, redefining what it means to be powerful by reporting India's biggest issues and within the confines of their own homes. Questioning notions of patriarchy and redefining power, investigating local police force incompetence, listening in and standing by victims of caste and gender violence. Other nominees in the Best Documentary Feature category are Accession, Attica, Flea and Summer of Soul. This year's list of Oscar nominees is led by filmmaker Jane Campion's Gothic Western, The Power of the Dog, which has 12 nominations. The 94th Annual Academy Awards ceremony will air live on ABC from Hollywood's Dolby Theatre on 27th March. Bollywood stars Akshay Kumar and Tiger Shroff team up for upcoming project Double Action Bade Miyan Chote Miyan to be directed by Ali Abbas Zafar. Bollywood stars Akshay Kumar and Tiger Shroff, Top Guns and high-octane action films will soon share screen space in a film titled Bade Miyan Chote Miyan. The film is directed by Ali Abbas Zafar. It will be backed by Pooja Entertainment. The film is a remake of a 1998 comedy film of the same name which featured Amitabh Bachchan and Govinda in double roles. The original was directed by David Dhawan and also featured Ramya Krishnan, Raveena Tandon, Anupam Kher and Paresh Rawal in pivotal roles. The film was one of the biggest hits of the year and the songs from the film trended big time too, especially Makhna featuring Madhuri Dixit. Speaking of the remake, the film's producer Vasu Bhagnani said it is a film very close to his heart as it brought together two legends, Amit Ji and Govinda, and was directed by his favorite David Ji. It is heartening to see Chote Miyan Jackie recreate the magic along with Ali Abbas Zafar, who has a brilliant vision for the film. He is so humbled to have Akshay Kumar and Tiger Shroff be his Bade Miyan and Chote Miyan for the new generation of audiences in 2023. The film will release in Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam and Kannada in theatres on Christmas 2023. Bollywood's Big B has a treat for his fans. We bring you the teaser of the sports film Jhund starring Amitabh Bachchan. Big B portrays the character of Vijay Barse in the biographical film scheduled to release on March 4th. Here is a peek at the much-awaited teaser of Jhund directed by Nagraj Popatro Munjal starring Amitabh Bachchan in the lead role. Amitabh plays the role of Vijay Barse in the biographical sports drama that was announced in February 2019. Vijay Barse is a retired sports professor who encourages street children to build a football team to help them find a purpose in life. The team is called Slum Soccer. The teaser shows a bit of Big B's character, his team and their interesting journey. Jhund will hit the theatres on March 4th. It starts off with a group of kids jamming together. The makers have revealed the faces of the kids and Amitabh Bachchan's look as well. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report.
And thank you very much, Himanshu, for that report. As we know, that's Bollywood is once again trying to recover and get on board with all the things that they can do. Well, right now, let's take a quick look at some of the functions and events taking place here. And that's about all we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget that we have the Valentine's Day special program coming up, and that will be a very special presentation by Savi, which will be on the 13th. And of course, don't forget that on this Saturday, we have Swami Swarup Anandaji, the world leader of Chinmaya Mission, coming right here on this channel and to talk to us about Vedanta, how he got involved with the Chinmaya movement and all the other things, and especially on Bhagavad Gita. So a very informative session coming up on Saturday at 10 a.m. and the news will be at 9 a.m. on this Saturday. So Swami Swarupanandaji will be here on these studios talking to all of you. Well, until then, it's goodbye from us, and we will see you back on tomorrow at 10 a.m. Until then, it's goodbye.